What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Beat. And so today I want to talk about a topic that typically doesn't get a lot of attention in Christian circles, but it's one that I'm going to be honest with you, it hits home for me personally. And I'm going to just say this. I know there might be other videos out there on YouTube about this, and maybe at some point in your life, maybe you've heard somebody preach a sermon on this, but I can tell you that I don't think I've ever heard a pastor ever preach a sermon on this subject. And what we're going to talk about today is overcoming the sin of gluttony. Now, some of you might look at me and be like, hey, come on, Brother Allen, what you know about struggling with food, all right? Well, look, don't let the slim figure fool you, okay? Because brother man over here likes to eat, and oftentimes eating way too much. We're going to talk about that, all right? I know I'm not the only one. But I'm going to put my hand up and say gluttony is an issue for me that I need to overcome. And here's the truth, all right? Gluttony is a real struggle for me, despite my size, despite the way I might look. And I know that I'm not the only one, and that might be surprising to some of you. So here's the reality. The reality is that obviously gluttony isn't always visible. You don't have to be overweight to struggle with it. Some people just have a fast metabolism or good genetics, and it may not show up physically, but that does not mean that the struggle isn't real. You see, gluttony is an issue of the heart, and it's something that affects more people than we might think. So today in this video, we're going to unpack this topic together. First, we're going to start by defining what gluttony actually is. I'm actually going to give you 7 signs to help you recognize if it's something that you're struggling with, all right? Then we're going to talk about what the Bible says about gluttony and why it can be so dangerous, number 3. And then finally, as always in these overcoming videos, I'm going to give you some practical tips for overcoming gluttony. Now, if this is something that you've wrestled with, or maybe even something that you didn't even realize you're struggling with, stay tuned, because I think you're going to find this video eye-opening and hopefully helpful as well. Okay, so section number one, what is gluttony? And more importantly, how do I know if I'm guilty of it? All right, let's dive in and let's define exactly what gluttony is. So simply put, gluttony is an excessive or obsessive desire for food or drink, really primarily food or drink, or really any form of physical pleasure, but primarily it's centered around food. And it's when we allow our cravings to control us rather than controlling them. All right, so gluttony isn't just about how much we eat. It's about why we eat and how food fits into our lives. So in this video, we're going to talk about all of those things. Now, real quick, if you missed the first 2 videos in this series that we are entitling Overcomer, you're going to want to go back and watch those 2 videos, I promise you, because in week 1, we talked about overcoming addiction. Great video, all right? Week 2, we talked about overcoming anxiety, and now we're going to talk about gluttony. So how can you know if you're guilty of gluttony? Let me give you 7 signs. I told you I'm going to load you up that might help you discern whether gluttony has become an issue or stronghold in your life. Number 1, you regularly eat past the point of fullness. So if you often find yourself eating even after you're full, so you're full, all right, your body is telling you, okay, you're full, but you're now eating almost to the point of discomfort, to where your belly is sticking out, almost you're stuffed, right? When you could have stopped eating 2 sides ago, or you didn't need to order that dessert. And I'm guilty, or I'm not preaching at you, all right? That can be a sign of gluttony. I'm laughing because I'm so convicted. I am so convicted by all of these. Okay, so occasional indulgence is normal, like having a dessert or whatever. But if it's a consistent habit, it could mean food is taking a larger role in your life than it should. Okay, number 2. Food is your go-to for comfort or stress relief. Many of us turn to food to deal with stress or sadness or boredom, or maybe you feel like it's a reward. Hey, you know, like, so this is your relationship with food. Like, I had a really hard day. I worked really hard. I put 12 hours in. I deserve to go pig out, right? I mean, I worked hard today. I deserve to eat a whole large pizza. Guilty, okay? But if you're consistently using food to fill emotional or spiritual needs, that might be a sign of gluttony. And God intends us to turn to him whenever we need comfort, not the refrigerator, all right, or our favorite restaurant. Okay, number 3, you feel a loss of control around food. Now, let me ask you, do you find it difficult to resist cravings? Almost impossible. Even when you know you shouldn't indulge, you know you don't need that dessert, but you get it anyway. You know you should not be eating that ice cream at 9 o'clock at night, but you get it anyway. You know you shouldn't eat those last 3 slices of pizza, but hey, I don't want to waste them because, we don't want to throw food away, so I might as well eat them. I'm already full, but I'm going to eat them. So if food controls your choices more than you control your cravings, it could indicate a struggle with gluttony. Listen, self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, and consistently lacking self-control in this area might be a red flag. All right, number 4, food dominates your thoughts. All right, I talked about this a little bit in the addiction video, but basically, if you're constantly thinking about food, what you're going to eat next, planning your day around meals, I'm laughing because I'm so convicted, or finding your mind drifting to your next snack, it could be a sign that food has taken an outsized role in your life. Obsessive thoughts about food can indicate that it's become more than just fuel for your body. It's not just fuel anymore. This is becoming a stronghold. Number 5, you feel guilty or ashamed after eating. Did you know that many people who struggle with gluttony experience cycles of guilt and shame after overindulging? And this oftentimes can weigh heavily on us mentally and emotionally on our well-being, leading to feelings of regret. I regret eating this. I know I shouldn't have. I didn't need to get that dessert. I didn't need to eat that. Self-condemnation. And this cycle of guilt can be spiritually draining, and it can impact our confidence in our walk with God. Number 6, you spend excessive time, money, or energy on food. If you're putting a lot of resources like time, money, or mental energy into food at the expense of other important areas, that could mean it's a warning sign, right? Okay. Let me give you an example. When food becomes a priority over giving money to somebody else or serving or even spending time with loved ones, it could be a sign that it's taking too central a place in your life. I'm going to put my hand up for this. Okay, because I'm going to tell you, I don't struggle with overspending on a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm pretty simple. I mean, it's got to be a regular, this serves from Target, okay? So regular black shirt, I don't get expensive clothes, or I don't typically indulge. Neither does my wife. If you looked at my bank account and you saw how much money I spend every month on food, you'd probably be shocked. Because when I'm talking about food, I'm not talking about I go to Chick-fil-A. My wife and my kids will make fun of me because I'm like, my wife will be like, what'd you have for dinner tonight? I'm like, yeah, I went to Eddie V's, where I got me a ribeye steak, a couple of sides. You know what I'm saying? Food is my thing. It's a stronghold for me. All right. I know I'm not the only one. Number 7, you eat secretly or hide eating habits from others. See, eating in secret and hiding your habits can indicate shame or a sense of addiction. So if you're embarrassed by how much or what you're eating, it might be because deep down you know that food has taken an unhealthy place in your heart and life. So that's 7 signs. If any of those signs resonate with you, don't be discouraged. This isn't about shame, no judgment. It's about recognizing areas in our lives. That's what this whole series is about, where we need to ask God for help. And gluttony, like any other struggle, is something that we can work through with his strength. Now, second thing, what does the Bible say about gluttony? All right, now that we know what it is and some signs, well, look, the Bible actually has a lot to say about gluttony and the importance of self-control. Let me give you some key verses that can help us address the dangers of overindulgence and the impact it can have on our spiritual lives. Okay, Proverbs 23, 20 and 21. Do not join with those who drink too much wine or, this is convicting. Oh, Lord, help me. Gorge themselves on meat. For drunkards and gluttons become poor. and drowsiness clothes them in rags. This verse, it warns that gluttony can lead to poverty, laziness. It shows that overindulgence has real world consequences. Okay, Proverbs 25:16. If you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it and you'll vomit. So this proverb is pretty self-explanatory. It uses the example of honey to remind us of the importance of moderation. Okay, you got the honey. Okay, sugar, whatever. Okay, eat, but just eat enough. So even good things like honey, when taken in excess, can become harmful. It's a simple but powerful call to practice self-control. Here's a good one. Deuteronomy 21, 20-21. They shall say to the elders, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Woo, Lord, aren't you glad that you ain't living in the Old Testament time? Listen, then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. Wow. You must purge the evil from among you. Whew. Now, I know this Old Testament law seems extreme to us, but it illustrates how seriously gluttony and drunkenness were viewed in ancient Israel. So overindulgence was seen as a symptom of a rebellious and undisciplined heart. 1 Corinthians 6:12-13. This is a huge one. I have the right to do anything, but you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. You say, well, food is for the stomach and the stomach is for food, right? In other words, hey, why would God give us a stomach if he didn't want us to put food in it? And why would God create food if he didn't want us to if he didn't want us to put us in our stomach, right? Well, Paul says, well, God's going to destroy them both. Paul reminds us here that while food itself isn't necessarily inherently bad, we should never allow it to control us. So gluttony occurs when our physical cravings become our master rather than something we manage in a balanced way. Philippians 3. Paul also warns, for as I have often told you before and tell you again, even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their destiny is destruction. Their God is their stomach. Ooh. And their glory is in their shame. Here, Paul highlights the danger of letting our appetites become an idol, taking the place that rightfully belongs to God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. So this verse challenges us to honor God in every aspect of our lives, including our eating habits. It reminds us that our relationship with food should reflect a heart that seeks to glorify God, not one that's controlled by indulgence. So these verses indicate that God takes this issue of overindulgence and gluttony very, very serious. It also shows that gluttony isn't just about overeating. It's more than that. It's an issue that affects our hearts, our self-control, and our relationship with God. So we need to recognize the seriousness of gluttony in Scripture and hopefully motivate us to pursue a life of discipline. Okay, so now, what are the dangers of gluttony? Let's talk about why gluttony can be dangerous. Okay, this isn't just about physical health. Gluttony impacts several areas of our lives. Number one, spiritual consequences. You know, the Bible has a lot to say about self-control. And when you and I indulge in gluttony, we're allowing our cravings to erode this essential fruit of the Spirit. Self-control helps us live a life that honors God. But when food takes control, it weakens our ability, here it is, to exercise discipline in other areas too. This is the reason why fasting, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, is so critical. Because if you can discipline yourself to say no to food, you can discipline yourself to say no to just about anything. All right, it's dangerous because it has physical consequences. These are pretty obvious. Overeating and poor dietary habits can lead to serious health issues like obesity. For some of you, I'm calling you out by name. All right. And I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just saying this is a serious issue. And I'm surprised nobody's talking about it. We need to talk about it. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease. We need to remember that our bodies are gifts from God, and taking care of them is part of being a good steward with what he's given us. It can affect us emotionally and mentally. Many people who struggle with gluttony feel cycles, as I mentioned earlier, of guilt and shame after indulging. Listen, food should not be something that you feel guilty about after you eat it. And this guilt that we experience can be a heavy emotional burden. It can affect our confidence in our walk with God. And additionally, now watch this, you can use food to cope with stress or emotions, and that can increase your anxiety, which we talked about in the last video, as it prevents us from addressing the real issues and keeps us trapped in a cycle of dependence on food. Number 4, financial consequences. Gluttony can lead to overspending on food, especially if we're constantly buying indulgent or luxurious items like me. All right. I'm not even going to tell you. All right. Because some of y'all going to judge me. All right. $50, $60 on steak. Man, I can go get a steak and put it on my grill in the backyard. Why I got to spend money on steak? All right. That's a whole nother story. All right. It not only affects our financial health, but it can also limit our ability to give generously to others. All right. So finally, what are some practical tips for overcoming gluttony? Let's look at some practical tips. All right. Number 1, as we've been doing for this entire series, we want to make it practical. Listen to your body's hunger cues. Try to let your body, not the clock, determine when you eat. When I learned this principle, it changed everything. Eat only when you're truly hungry and aim to eat until you're full, not stuffed. This can help prevent overeating and encourage you to only consume what your body actually needs. Some of us, we eat breakfast because it's morning time. We eat lunch because it's lunchtime. We eat dinner because it's dinner time. So yeah, I should probably eat 3 meals a day, right? Why? If you're still full from breakfast, why do you need to eat lunch? You're already full from breakfast. You can wait and fast until dinner. And if you ate dinner at 8 o'clock at night, why do you need to eat breakfast? So don't just eat because it's time to eat. Eat when your body says it's time to eat. Number 2, set physical boundaries around food. So establishing boundaries like regular meal times, smaller portions. I remember I have a video where I talk about how I lost 35 pounds in 90 days, right? Now, I've gained a little bit of that back, 5-6 pounds. Okay, I'm trying to get back myself. But that's been like 2 years now, but off of that program. But the point is, one of the things that helped was smaller portions. And this can limit overindulgence and avoid keeping trigger foods in the house, things you're likely to overeat. Setting these boundaries can help you enjoy food in moderation. Next one. Revisit your relationship with food. Ask yourself, do I see food as fuel for my body, or do I see it as a reward or comfort or even a coping mechanism? Because if you're using food as something more than nourishment, it might be time to redefine your relationship with food. Shifting your mindset on how you see food can help you approach meals with gratitude and self-control rather than with a sense of indulgence, right? Have you ever seen Beauty and the Beast where that beast just eats all the food, just stuffs his face? Like that's what we do. I know I do. All right, number 4, get to the root of your overeating. Because see, overeating is often a symptom of deeper emotional or spiritual issues. If you find yourself turning to food for comfort, consider exploring what's really going on. Addressing these underlying issues can help break the cycle of overeating. So in other words, a lot of times the food is not the main issue. There's something else going on in your life that is causing you to turn to food, which is then causing you to be depressed and shame and guilt and weight gain and all the other things I talked about. Number 5, find accountability. Now, if you're married, you got built-in accountability right there. Ask your spouse to help you stay on track with your eating goals, or maybe go through this together if both of you are struggling with this. If you're single, consider asking a close friend or family member to hold you accountable, because having someone to support you makes it easier to stay committed. Number 6, develop healthy, enjoyable habits. Sometimes we overeat because we're bored. Let's be honest about it. We are bored, and as a result, let me go get some chips. Let me go get some ice cream. Let me go get some Skittles. Let me go get some whatever. All right, I'm not going to say anything more because I might tempt you to sin. Well, not sin, but you know what I'm saying, overindulge. So I want you to try filling your life with activities that engage and fulfill you. Exercise, hobbies, spending time in prayer, connecting with loved ones, hanging out. When you have other sources of joy, we're less likely to turn to food to fill a void. Number 7, remember your body is a temple. Paul said this, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit? Therefore, honor God with your bodies. See, viewing your body as a temple helps you treat it with the respect it deserves, making it easier to avoid excess and bringing to your attention, should I be putting this type of food and this much food in the temple that God has given me? So as I close, I'm just going to be the first one to say, I struggle with this, y'all. I struggle with gluttony. Okay, maybe not as much as I used to, but I struggle with it. And it's a struggle that many of us face, but the good news is that God doesn't leave us to battle it alone. With His help, we can develop self-control. We can redefine our relationship with food, and we can find true satisfaction in Him, and we can actually enjoy food for what it's worth. So I hope this video encouraged you to take a serious, honest look at gluttony from a biblical perspective, from a new perspective, from a personal inward inventory perspective, and giving you some practical steps and tips to address it in your own life. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying this series that we're doing on Overcomer. If there's some other things you want me to talk about in this series of Overcomer, let me know in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.